All right, we've got people in the room. People are going to start filtering in. Okay. Hey, everybody.
Awesome.
Um, let me get, oops, let me get my thing down here so I can kind of monitor Q&A. How do I do that?
So are you going to throw
There
questions
we
my
go.
way when they come in?
Yes, so I will throw questions your way once they start coming in. And let me turn the volume down. I don't need to hear myself. All right. So we already got one chat question here. Somebody's hot to trot here. I see it on Facebook. All right. Thanks, Kevin. All right. So welcome, everybody. Welcome to the May meeting. It is just me tonight. DJ's wife's birthday, I think, is today. And so he's taking her out and treating her wife. Uh,
Taking her out?
yeah, he's taking her
Yeah,
out.
what
I don't
does
know what
that
they're
look like?
doing.
Go
Yeah, I
to
don't know
the
what they're
park.
doing,
Take
but
out at the park.
but he's doing something with her. So you got just me tonight, and we have Theresa with us, who's going to be talking about the mobile apps from Creative Cloud. It should be really, really cool. Couple of things before we get started. For everybody who has not downloaded the Premiere Pro 14.2 update, I would recommend that. It is a really good update with a lot of good stuff in it. Especially the encoding speed, which if you can access hardware encoding, which makes renders go or encodes go a lot faster. And there's a lot of bug fixes, and there's a few other things in there that are really good as well, a lot of optimization. So I would say definitely download it. And if you're not using the beta versions of Premiere and After Effects and all those, check those out as well. They are really cool, and there's a lot of cool features in them that are upcoming. So that's all I have for announcements. And I did want to say about next month's meeting real quick too. Next month, we're probably going to be doing a joint meeting with the Final Cut user group. I'll have some more details on that later. But we're going to kind of do, I think the talk is we're going to do a little bit of a panel discussion. We're going to try to work out the details on that and get some Emmy-nominated editors to come talk about their work. That should be kind of cool. We're still in the works on that, so it could change, but that's what we're hoping for. So I think that's all the announcements that I have right now. So I think I will go ahead and turn it over to Theresa. And stupidly, I don't have Theresa's bio in front of me, so I'm just going to say, let's see, I got something here. Will we all stay muted? Yes, you're muted, Bob. If you have a question, you have to put it in the chat window or the Q&A window, and I'll pass that along to Theresa.
Eric, do questions from Facebook come through on Zoom?
They do not, but fortunately, I have an iPad right here that is, wow, it's totally gone. Look at that.
Yeah, it's invisible.
Yes, I have Facebook questions that will come up on here, so I'll pass those along as well.
Okay, awesome.
So, okay, I guess without anything else to say, I will turn over to Theresa Jackson, who is going to download a ton of knowledge on us. So, Theresa, take it away.
I do my screen share now?
Yep, do your screen share.
Okay. Awesome. So, can you see it? Are we good? Can you see my screen, Eric?
So I can see your screen.
You can see it. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for asking me to be here to present to your group. I remember the last time I did a presentation was probably a couple of years ago down at the old school, the Arts Institute that's no longer there.
The Art Institute.
Yeah, this is so much easier because all my stuff is here and I don't have to worry about connecting it. There's always that fear. And I'm going to be demonstrating mobile apps which require internet connectivity. So there was always that issue too when we would do presentations there, that the internet was kind of iffy at best, right? Remember
Yeah,
that?
it was pretty much non-existent.
Yeah. So somehow I got through that last time, but I think mostly I didn't do too much internet stuff. So I'm Theresa Jackson. I don't really know how many people in your group are familiar with me or were there a couple of years ago. So, well, let me just tell you what I'm going to talk about first, and then I'll tell you about me. I'm going to do just kind of a high-level overview of the Adobe mobile apps, giving you an idea of what's out there and what you could do with them, and show off some of my favorite things. I can't, there's no possible way that I could go through every single app, and you'd probably be bored with that if I did, because you're probably not interested in all of them. But I think in this whole family of them, you'll see a few that you really want to check out. So that's my plan for tonight, is to just give you a high level overview and a little bit of specifics on some of my favorite things. Okay, so a little bit about me. I'm actually not a film or video person. I dabble a little bit here and there, but I don't have the skills that you guys do. I come from a background in print and spent 25 years working in the print industry. And for the last 10 plus years, I've been working for myself, running a graphic design business. And over the last, I'd say 6 or 7 years, I've been really venturing and transitioning into more of training than doing the designing, which is ideally where I'd like to spend my full time. So for a couple years now, I've been authoring courses on LinkedIn Learning, and I can share a link to that maybe in the chat pod when we're done, so you can check out the courses. I have several courses on Lightroom, which cover mobile stuff. I have an Illustrator course and 2 Dimension courses, which is a 3D application. So I also teach at Miracosta College. Some of you maybe have run across me there. I'm an associate instructor there, and I teach Photoshop and Illustrator. I'm pretty connected in the Adobe community as a ACP or Adobe community professional. I'm required to help people on the forums, the community forums. So you might have come across my name there, especially in the Lightroom forums. I spent a lot of time there. And last year I became an education leader, which is another community within Adobe. And what else? On my website, orchardviewcolor.com, is where I do one-on-one training. So people pay me by the hour, and we do this on Zoom, and they share their screen, and I help them with whichever application they need help with. Primarily, I've been doing Lightroom training, but I can do Photoshop and Illustrator as well. Okay, I guess that's about it for me. So I want to start with, actually I went the wrong way here. I want to start with the Creative Cloud desktop app. Everything starts with the Creative Cloud desktop app. It always surprises me how many people aren't even aware of what all's here. This app completely changed last year, I think, just before Adobe Max. And there's even more stuff in here than there was when it used to be this like skinny little strip. So you probably are familiar with the Creative Cloud desktop app to run updates on your apps, like I have in the updates here. I have an update. There's an update to XD like every day. I don't know how many of you have XD running on your computer, but they update that app like every other day, it seems like. And then just recently, they started giving us the Photoshop pre-release through the Creative Cloud app. For those of us that are on the pre-release, that's pretty cool. But what I wanted to show you, which you may not have seen or noticed, is if you're in the All Apps tab here, at the top, in the middle, it says Mobile. And this is an awesome way to find an app and not have to go searching through the app store and did you get the right app or whatever. So if there's an app here that you want, you can click the send link button. It'll text you a link to your device, and then boom, you can download it on your device from there. So that's really cool. But just taking a glance at this, look at how many apps there are. So if you've never looked in here, you might be really shocked at how many mobile apps there are. All of these are included in your Creative Cloud subscription. So when you're paying your monthly fee for your apps that you're using, you're not just paying for those apps. You're paying for this service of all this connectivity, and the apps are included in that. So the apps are free, and they're free to anybody, even people with without paid subscriptions. But the services that allow things to connect and talk to each other, they don't get. So there's not a whole lot of value in them without that. Now, Photoshop and Fresco, you can't use it all without a Creative Cloud subscription. I don't think you can even download Photoshop for free. Lightroom you can. Lightroom you can download even if you have an unpaid subscription. I think Premiere Rush you can also, but Eric, you might know better on Rush. Do you have to have a paid subscription to download that one, or?
I actually don't know that. Being that I have the subscription, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to know what you don't get when you're always subscribed to it. The other one caveat here, which I think is really unfortunate, and if I worked for Adobe, I wouldn't have made that decision, but Fresco is not available to Creative Cloud subscribers of the photography plan. And I don't think that's any of you guys because you're using Premiere Pro. But there's a lot of photographers that I present for that have the photography plan, which gives them Photoshop and Lightroom. They get Photoshop on their iPad, but they don't get Fresco, which is really unfortunate. I'm going to show you Fresco. It's one of my favorite apps. It's for drawing and painting. So other apps on here that I can just give you a little overview on. Some of these Photoshop ones are becoming maybe a little extinct. Maybe they're phasing them out because Photoshop itself will be replacing them. That would be Photoshop Express, Photoshop Fix, and Photoshop Mix. But Photoshop, the Photoshop mobile app, only runs on an iPad. So if you wanted some Photoshop tools on a phone, that's when you would use those others. So maybe they'll keep those around for a long time because you need to have, not everybody has an iPad. Most of these apps, though, run on both the iPad and the phone. So let's see, the ones that don't would be Fresco, Photoshop, and what else do we have that doesn't? Comp. I don't think Comp runs on a. Comp's another one that may not be. Comp is like InDesign on a mobile app. I don't know what its future looks like though. They haven't done any updates on that in a long time.
Yeah, we actually do have a question.
Yeah.
Marcy asks, my license is under one email account, but my phone is using another. How would I be able to install and use the mobile apps?
Everything has to be under the same account. In order to have that connectivity, it's all through the same login. So you need to get both the phone and your computer in the same login. So Marcy may be using a work account for her computer and a personal account for her phone, but they won't talk to each other. There's no possible way. Everything has to be through the account. And it's not that easy to merge accounts. Like you gotta contact Adobe support to do that. You can't go to the community forums and nobody can help you there. Any other questions?
I don't see any. Marcy says, "Yep, that's the case, I guess." So, but yeah.
I wish I had a better answer, but that's the answer.
All right.
Okay, so a couple of the newer ones that you might want to check out that I don't think I'll have time to get to tonight is Arrow. Arrow is it's like virtual reality. And there's these animated characters on Mixamoto that you can download and place into a scene. And you basically make a scene like your desk. You can aim your phone at your desk and it'll map it out in real space. And then you can put animated 3D models in those. And it's really wild stuff. That just came out last year around Max. And I've only had a little bit a chance to play with it. Let's see, other ones that are new. I think that's probably the newest one. As far as video goes, you have Premiere Rush. I'm not a video person, so I'm not gonna demonstrate it because you probably already know more about it than I do. What I do know about it is it's a great place to be able to start some type of video editing using a mobile device, and you can send it to Premiere Pro and finish it there. It's not a full circle workflow. So you're not going to go from Rush to Premiere Pro and back to Rush, but you can start in Rush and send it to Premiere Pro and then finish your professional editing there.
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing though what you can do with your phone or your tablet.
Oh yeah.
So maybe I'll pause and talk a little bit about my philosophy on all of this. Um, I got really interested in mobile apps and just mobile creating. I think it was 5 years ago now. It might have been six. I was driving from San Diego up to LA for Adobe Max, and I was thinking, "Well, I wonder what's the thing going to be? What are we going to see this year that's new and exciting?" And before I got to LA, I thought, I bet it's mobile, because they had already released a couple apps. There was, just kind of like a teaser of stuff. And I said, I bet Adobe's just going full bore into mobile. And sure enough, that year at Adobe Max, they released a bunch of these apps, and it was at that time that I thought, well, I want to be in front of this, because I think this is where technology's going, and I want to be able to know about it so I can teach it and speak about it, because it's brand new. It's not already a flooded market of presenters and instructors like Photoshop is, right? That's my background, is Photoshop, but there's tons of Photoshop trainers out there. So I started exploring them then and just absolutely fell in love with them. And what I found was, it gave me this ability to create in a very free space that I don't feel when I'm at my desktop. When I'm sitting at my desktop, I feel like I'm at work. But when I pick my iPad up and I go out to the couch in front of the TV, I feel like I'm playing. And I love that. It just allowed me to be so much more creative. The second thing I'm really passionate about this with is, I really believe this is the future. And if you want to stay relevant in technology, in the creative space, you absolutely need to start embracing this now, because our kids who are no longer in a classroom to learn, right? I don't know when they're going to go back to a classroom, but they're at home. And the majority of those kids are doing their homework on a phone or a tablet. And if they're doing any creative work, they're doing it on a mobile app. If they're learning how to use Photoshop, they're doing it on an iPad. They're not doing it on a desktop. If they're doing any video, they're doing it in Rush, not Premiere Pro. So I really believe that it's the future. The way that we work today, in say Eric's kids' lifetime, when they're adults and they're creating content, it's not going to look, their workspace isn't going to look like ours. So I feel really strongly about that. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but it's not going to look like this. Okay, so I'm going to switch to my my iPad, which I am
We had one
sending.
question, Theresa. What is Mixomoto?
Mixomoto is a site that has animated characters, and you can download those. Let me pull it up and make sure that I'm saying that right. Mixomoto. Oh, I think I'm saying the name wrong. So I'll have to look that up and get back to you. I just said that off the top of my head. And if you go into Arrow, maybe I'll open Arrow up, and let's just do it. Let's see if I can get there.
One quick question while you're doing that. Jordan asked, how new does your Android phone have to be? How much memory do you need for most of the apps?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but it's all online if you look up the specifications of them. So I don't actually have Arrow installed because it's a very large app and it fills up my device. I only install it when I'm playing around with it. So I'm going to skip over that. But if you're interested in artificial reality, and if you like 3D and 3D animation, you want to put your 3D animated characters into your living room or your desk, you can do that with Arrow. And Arrow will send you links to where you can download some pre-made animated characters. That's how I did it when I was playing around with it. I don't know if I still have that on my. One
other question we had. Arlene asked, does it work on HP or Mac? And I was just going to respond back real quick. These are mobile apps or tablet-based apps. So they'll work on either your iPad or your Android device. I think Rush, I know, will work on a Windows and a Mac lap or a desktop.
Most all of the apps now work on both the iOS and the Android. They started all their development on iOS. So Android has has always been a step behind, and Photoshop's the same thing. I don't think Photoshop works on a Chromebook yet. I expect it will eventually, but Adobe made some type of a calculated decision to develop all the mobile apps for the iOS first because there was more users of them at that time. Whether or not that's the case now, I don't know. But I believe most of the apps have all caught up.
Okay.
So I happen to have a video saved in my photos here that this is my desk that I'm sitting at right now. And I was just, this was March 5th. Okay. So this was like the beginning of quarantine, right? And I was just like feeling crazy, like, oh, you know, what are we headed into? So I opened up Aero and I started playing, and I found these characters on, I thought it was Mixamo, but I found them through Aero, and I downloaded them to a Creative Cloud library and I placed them on my desk. So, you know, so this is my iPad and those are my glasses, you know, this is all the junk on my desk. And you can zoom in and out on these characters and move it around. It's crazy. You place them on the scene and then, you know, you could walk through a space or whatever. So a lot of potential there. But this is just me being silly. I thought these guys were crazy. The only thing that's missing is they don't have any shadows, right? That's the only thing that doesn't look real. But if they had a shadow cast onto the desk, that would look pretty realistic.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, yeah, that's the only thing they seem to be missing. But wow, that's just for like a mobile device that kind of augmented reality like that. It's pretty cool.
It's crazy. Okay, so I wanted to open the Creative Cloud app here as well, because everything starts with the Creative Cloud app, even if you're on a mobile device. So you have the Creative Cloud app for your desktop. There's also a Creative Cloud app for your mobile device, and you would want to sign in. So if I go to my avatar up there and I go to my account, we'll see that I'm signed in. And this is the same exact account that I'm signed in on my desktop. And whatever I see on my desktop, I'm going to see here. This app's also available on your phone, and everything that I'm showing you here is available on your phone. It's just I'm using the iPad because you can see it better than the phone. But everything works the same. So first thing is there's a tutorials tab. So if you're looking for tutorials, all these apps have tutorials. If you want a tutorial on Premiere Brush, you can watch them right here within your Creative Cloud app on your mobile device. Next thing is your work. Okay, so you can see these characters, all the 5 of them, the 5 characters you see, those are all animated models that I downloaded to play in Aero. So it's saving them to Creative Cloud files. So you have Creative Cloud files and you have libraries. I'm looking across the top here. We have libraries. I should go in here and turn on my, where is that at? Under my preferences, I want to turn on my touch. I can't remember if that's it, so that you guys can see what I'm doing. Maybe that's not working. So I'll try and explain. There's no mouse, so it's kind of hard for you guys to follow. The important thing that I wanted to show here is that wherever your files are, as long as you're using on these Creative Cloud services, you can get to them on your mobile device. So if you're saving your files in Creative Cloud files through the Creative Cloud desktop app, you can find, you know, I've got some, I don't know what I've got in here, work, screenshots, presentations, whatever I've saved into Creative Cloud files on my desktop, I can get to on my iPad. So you don't have any problems transferring files around with the Creative Cloud. Everything is available on your mobile device. If you use Creative Cloud libraries, which you all should be using Creative Cloud libraries, I hope you are. Everything, all these mobile devices and the way, or the mobile apps and the way you get files here and there is through libraries. So I'm going to show you Capture and Lightroom. When you use Capture, everything that you create in Capture goes to a Creative Cloud library. I use a ton of Creative Cloud libraries. So by default, if you have never created a library, you have a My Library, which is this one here. And this one just has a bunch of junk in it because I practice with this one, or when I'm doing demonstrations and testing stuff. So this has a whole miscellaneous. These are brushes that I created with Capture. There's lookup tables that you can use for your video color corrections. Shapes, you can now do color shapes, which I'll show you. So that's my library, which is like my junk drawer. You know, things just go in there. But I create client libraries. So imagine that I was on the road someplace and a client needed a logo and I don't have my laptop. I don't need my laptop because I have my phone, and my phone has the Creative Cloud app, and I could go into the library for that client and I could send them a link to that logo file that they need. So you don't have to carry your stuff around with you. It's just there because of the Creative Cloud. So super powerful. So you have libraries. You also have your Lightroom photos. You don't really need it here because you have the Lightroom app. Cloud Docs would be, if you're using like Acrobat and stuff, those all go up there. You also have, this is really amazing, fonts. I'm kind of curious. Can we take a poll? How many people knew you can install Creative Cloud fonts on a mobile device? Anybody knew that?
We have one person raised a hand, 2 people.
Cool.
3 people.
Because you know what? Adobe didn't do a very good job of telling us about this. It kind of snuck it in. Yeah, they sneak stuff in all the time. And they, you know, you just have to discover it on your own or something. So the way this works is you can browse Adobe fonts, which would be that you're browsing fonts at Adobe or fonts.adobe.com website. If I tap at the top here where it says active fonts not on this device, these are fonts that I have activated at fonts.adobe.com. So I have 90 fonts activated there right now. Those fonts are all available to me in my Creative Cloud apps on my desktop. If I want that font to be available here in something I'm creating here, say in the Photoshop mobile app or in the Spark apps, I can install it on my mobile device. So that's pretty powerful. That really opens up a whole lot of design possibility, being able to get to those fonts on your mobile device. Also here under apps, the same thing as we had on the desktop app. So maybe you go to the desktop to get the link to the Creative Cloud app and you install it, and then you open the Creative Cloud app on your mobile device, and then you can get directly to all of the mobile apps that you might be interested in here and just install them instead of going to the App Store to do that. Any questions on the Creative Cloud app? I think I'll switch over and go into Lightroom if there's no questions here. Are we good?
Any coming in. But I just want to say a quick thing about the fonts. I have to remind myself that we have access to a ton of fonts other than what's on your system. I have like a boatload of fonts on my system, but through Premiere and through After Effects, I mean, through the Creative Cloud, there's so many more fonts you have access to. Just a reminder.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you brought that up. I'm going to pull up the website actually and take a look at it. I had a conversation with Extensa's Suitcase at Adobe Max, and because I use the Suitcase font management software, because I have like 4,000 fonts on my computer, and you don't want this isn't known, the whole font thing. Somebody could probably do a whole presentation on that, but you don't want to install fonts into your operating system, especially if you have a couple thousand of them, because it will bloat your system and your restarts and everything will be really slowed down by that. So I use a program called Suitcase that will turn fonts on and off. And I've been using it for, I don't know, 15 years at least, maybe longer. And these guys were at Adobe Max, and I, as politely as I could, I said, I don't know what your future is, because Adobe's taking it over. You know, I mean, I don't really believe that we should have monopolies, but they are. They're getting a monopoly on all of this stuff. So, and they keep adding fonts to this website. So all you have to do is say you like this cool font here. All you have to do is click the switch. And now it's activated, and any application, including Premiere Pro, if I want to use this font in that video, there it is. So I don't use, for the most part, I don't use my font library anymore. I just go to Adobe. It's just easier. It's, you know, it's just on if I need it. So, okay. So that was a little bit of a sidetrack there. Let's pull up give me a second here. I'm going to switch to my phone. So I'm using QuickTime for this. If you have a Mac, you can do this. You go into movie recording, and then you pick whatever's connected. And I don't want to install. So now we're on my phone and my text. We don't want to look at those. I want to talk about Lightroom because I'm a photographer and I am in the wrong. So I didn't plan this very well. I'm going to sign this out. But this goes back to Marcy's question. So I have 2 Creative Cloud accounts, and one I use for Lightroom presentations when I don't want anybody to see my personal one. And I'm going to briefly show it to you guys. But you know, say I'm doing a conference, which I'm speaking at a conference next week. I use a cleaned out account, and that's what this was logged into because I was doing demonstrations from that. So I'm going to log into my main account, which is what everything else is logged into. And that's not the email address you want to email me at. Just telling you. Oh, don't you just hate this stuff? Okay. Except for that we get it automatically. Oh, good. It recognized me with my headset on. So what's going to happen when I log into Lightroom here is it's going to load all the photos that I have in my Lightroom photos. I recently cleaned out my Lightroom Cloud, so I don't have a ton of stuff in there. I use Lightroom Classic on my desktop, but I use Lightroom on my phone and my iPad. Lightroom on so there's two Lightroom desktop applications. There's Lightroom and there's Lightroom Classic. Lightroom on your desktop is the exact same app that we're looking at here on my phone, and it's the same exact app as Lightroom on an iPad. And the beauty with this is that if you use the Lightroom app to take a picture, and I'm opening the camera here on my desk, Eric mentioned this, that he uses this, so I thought I would show it. The reason why we use a Lightroom app to capture our photos is 2 reasons. First of all, it'll capture RAW. And at the very top where it says DNG, I'll tap there. You want it to be on DNG and not JPEG because a DNG file is a RAW file and it has a tremendous amount of data for editing. And then at the bottom here where it says Pro, you want to make sure it's not on auto, because if you're on auto, this is a lot like shooting with just the regular camera app. But if you switch it to Pro, you get all these settings, including a focus. Well, I don't know if you can see the junk behind here, but as I do this, the director guy is out of focus. But as I pull this back here, he's now in focus, and that receipt in the background is out of focus. So you can manually focus with this Lightroom app. Did you know that, Eric?
I did not know that, no.
Oh, cool. I got to show you something that you can use.
Your little record bar is blocking the or the little sound. I don't know, there's like a little thing. Oh, there it goes. It disappeared.
I had to move my mouse. Thank you for telling me. That was QuickTime. Because my mouse was sitting over it. QuickTime was doing that. So let me do that again. So where we have this plus, that brings up the manual focus. So you can slide that back and forth to manually focus for a narrow depth of field. Let's see if we can focus on his head. So the other reason why we do this is it automatically goes into the Lightroom cloud and it's not on the device. So these DNG files are fairly large, but they don't get stored on the device. As long as you're connected to Wi-Fi, which I am here, if we tap up here, we can see that the original file is getting uploaded now to the cloud. Only a smart preview will remain on the device. So it keeps you don't have to buy a super loaded mobile device or phone if you're using the Lightroom app to capture, because nothing is getting saved here. You also don't have to connect your phone to your computer to transfer files back and forth, because when you open your desktop computer, that photo will be there. I'll do that in a second, but before I switch over, let me just show you a little bit of the editing here. Across the bottom, and I'll tell you an honest story here that's kind of embarrassing. I was using the Lightroom app for quite a while, and I thought those were the only available edits. And I thought, well, gosh, my other Lightroom apps have all these other tools. Where did they go? Because I didn't realize you could slide this. So if I missed it, I'm guessing somebody out there missed it too. But everything that you have in the Lightroom app on your computer, everything you have for editing in Lightroom Classic, nearly everything you need is also here on your phone. So all the profiles, I don't know if you know much about profiles, but profiles are like a lookup table for the device that you're capturing with. So you probably have that. You probably have profiles for your video cameras as well, I would imagine.
You
And
do.
if you choose a different profile, it's going to change the color. I don't know how well this is transmitting, but it'll change the color slightly and how contrasty or flat it is. So I always start with a profile. And then the next thing I do is I go to auto, because auto works really well now. It didn't used to, but it's got artificial intelligence built in, and it does. And if I was putting this on Instagram, I would go into the crop tool and crop it 1:1, and then I would probably put like a vignette on it, like that. So all of that can be done on the phone. All your professional tools are available to you right here on your phone. You can capture in RAW and you can edit with professional tools. I mean, that's just freaking mind blowing to me. I don't know about you, but every time I use it, I'm like, I can't believe. I almost don't use my real camera as much anymore because I have all of this in my, right. It's always with me. It's always in my back pocket. So I'm going to switch over back to my iPad now because it's easier to see there. And I don't know if that's going to sync up that quick because we're streaming. It's sometimes a little bit slow, but let's take a look. So I'm going to go back to QuickTime, and this time I'm going to pick my iPad, and we don't want to install software. So on my iPad, I have the Lightroom app. It's the exact same app. It's just laid out for a bigger screen. And it looks like it's a little behind. Just going through my photos here. That's the mic that I got from LinkedIn, Eric. Isn't that cool? It came in a really sweet box and everything.
Wow.
Okay, so it just popped in.
Show off.
So there we go. And it popped in with all the edits. Look at that. It's a little out of focus. I didn't do a very good job with that. But this is my workflow for Lightroom. I shoot with my phone. And when I come home, my phone connects to Wi-Fi, and the photos automatically go from my phone up to the cloud. And then I get my iPad and I sit on the couch and I edit my photos. I actually prefer editing my photos on my iPad over my desktop because I like using my Apple Pencil. You can do edits, brush edits here. I don't think I have my iPad or my pencil here with me. That was kind of silly. So I could brush on his face, let's say, and we'll try and get some more detail in there. So you can do selective paint edits. I could do this on the phone as well, but it's just easier on a bigger screen. Now, but the edits that I just did here will show up back on my phone because everything's synced. And if I open The Lightroom.
There is a question about how do you find yourself waiting a long time for your devices to sync images up and down from Creative Cloud?
No, the fact that that just did it. There we go. So now I'm on. I have waited at times, and it really depends on your internet connection. And the last time I did a Lightroom presentation through Zoom, which was just last week, it never synced up while we were online. So I don't know why tonight it was super quick. Maybe my neighbors aren't online and streaming tonight. But so this is the Adobe Lightroom desktop app, and it's the same. So what you're given to use on your phone is the same power as what you have on your desktop. And everything all syncs together. So how cool is that?
To answer your follow-up question, I think it would probably depend on your internet speed, on how quickly things upload and download.
Absolutely. And how much bandwidth you have at the time, depending on who else is using it, and whether or not you're streaming at the time you do it. So I just opened the edit panel here on the desktop app, and you can see all the edits that I did. If I switch over here to the brush, it should show. I don't think the brush edit didn't come through yet because his face isn't darker. We'd see a pin there if it was, but it will. You know, it really just. I don't usually wait for it. That's all I can say. I have fast internet, and I don't usually wait for it. Okay, so that we'll quit out of that and go back to Lightroom here. You can create albums and organize them here. And if you create an album on your phone or your desktop, it shows up here. Everything matches. So it's awesome. Okay. I'm going to keep going because there's a lot more apps. I wanted to show you Adobe Capture, which is, I think, probably the app that you must have after Creative Cloud. So you got to put the Creative Cloud app on, and then you must have Adobe Capture. And I'm just curious, can we take a show of hands for how many people are playing around with Capture or familiar with it? Because if everybody's pretty familiar with it, I'm going to show you some things that you may not have found on your own. But
so far, we just have one hand, and I think I've used it a couple times too. So
okay, so we're going to do a beginner introduction to this. So let me get my water glass out of the way because we don't want spilled water. When you open Capture, which might be on your phone, it works exactly the same, but you just have a better display here, but they work exactly the same. The first time you open Capture on your phone, it may open your camera. So we're looking at my messy desk here and my art director dude. And this is confusing when you very first go into Capture if it launches directly into your camera. So in the lower right-hand corner is an X. You can tap on that X to close back out of the camera. I prefer that Capture not launch in the camera because I want to figure out what I want to do first. And also most of the time I'm going to work with an image that I've already captured. So you can use Capture to create assets from photos that you take at that moment, or you can get assets from photos that are in your library someplace. So I like to open from here. So there's a preference you can change. If you tap in the upper left-hand corner where the avatar is to get to your preferences, you can turn off that first setting that says launch camera mode. If that is off, when you launch Capture, it'll launch in the view that I was in, not the camera. One of the guys on the Capture team showed me that at Adobe Max, and I was like, where has that been all for the last few years? Like I've needed that. Okay, so across the top, well, let's start at the very top. See at the very top where it says Fresco brushes, you're probably wondering like, why are we talking about Fresco? We're talking about Capture. That is a Creative Cloud library that I made. And if I tap up there, there's see, I have tons of Creative Cloud libraries, assets and clients and junk drawers. And if we go here to my library, this is what yours is going to look like, unless you create other libraries. So again, this is my junk drawer of stuff that I've created with Capture. So let's just go ahead and go through Adobe Capture with this library. So more stuff will go in here. Right below where it says My Library are all the different assets that you can create with Capture. This first one, Materials, are materials that you could apply to a 3D object. I told you in the beginning that I have a course on LinkedIn called Dimension. I have 2 courses for Dimension. Dimension is like a staging for 3D models, and you can create materials to put as skins on those models here. They're not great. I would say of all the things you can do with Capture, this might be one of the weaker ones at this point, but you can do that. The next one over is Type, and this is really powerful because it will find fonts for you. So let me see. I have something here that I can probably use, my notes. So if I go to my camera and find that, let's see. See, this is why I like to use a photo, because it's kind of hard. You have to touch on it, take a picture. So now it found those fonts, and I'm going to say okay, and it's going to go out to Adobe Fonts Library, that one that I showed you through the browser, and it found it. There's the font. So I can save it, and now that font is going to be a character style in my Creative Cloud library. So if I was working on a project back on my desktop, I would very quickly be able to format my text with that font. So
Awesome,
wherever,
by the way. I had no idea that was possible. That's amazing.
it is amazing. Imagine you're out at a store, or you're in a theater or something, you see a poster and you're like, damn, I love that font. I wonder what that is. Just pull your phone out, capture, take a picture of it. Okay, so let's go to shapes. Shapes create vectors from pictures that you take. And up until November or December, I think it was December, you could only do black and white shapes. So all of these, I was doing a lot of work a couple of years ago where I was creating shapes of patterns, found patterns and drawn patterns, and then I would place them in my drawings. So that's what you're looking at here. Up until December, this was black and white. You could open this in Illustrator and color it. You could place it in Adobe Draw and stamp it as a shape. But in December, they quietly released color shapes, which is crazy. How many of you use Illustrator? Do you have any Illustrator users in your group?
You.
Okay, so in Illustrator, I'm trying to find something to take a picture of. In Illustrator, you can create image traces, which is like taking a photo. Well, why don't I just do it from a photo? You can take a photo and convert it to vector. Well, you can now do that with Capture on your mobile device. And that first one, Shape 19, is one that I did from a photo. So I already showed you how to do type from the camera, but let's do something from importing an image. So I tapped on the plus to get to this, and I just want to mention that it says Pattern Builder there, and I've been playing around with that, and that thing doesn't do anything worthwhile yet. So I think maybe it's something that they're still working on, that one day is going to be amazing and we'll just discover it. But it's sort of like Illustrator Pattern Maker, but it's not, it just doesn't work that good. So I'll let you know when it does. So I'm going to go to import image, and this is what's really cool is you have all these locations that you could find a photo to create a shape from, or whatever other asset you want. If you go to the Creative Cloud, it's going to be your file sharing. If you go to Lightroom, it's going to be all your albums. You can even search stock from right in here. Let's just do that. I don't know. We'll just find a photo. So I picked stock. I'm going to find a photo that looks like it would be a nice vector. Let's try this. So I'm not gonna license it. I'm just going to save a preview. We'll just create a vector from the preview file, so it'll have the watermark on it, but you'll see how it works. Okay, on the right-hand side under the check, the shapes is blue, meaning that's the type of asset that we're going to capture from this image. You can change your mind at this point and scroll through these. But I'm going to go back and we're going to do shapes. In the upper left-hand corner where the painter palette is, if it's on the old way, it's going to look like that. This is what we used to be able to do, just a black and white. But now we can do color. So if you go into create a shape and you don't see color, tap on that in the upper left-hand corner. And then we'll tap the check. And at this stage, you can see how it's kind of, the color palette's kind of simplified because it's been vectorized. Well, we can control this even further by tapping on the painter palette at the bottom. And this will allow you to say exactly how many colors you want. So say, for example, you've got a color palette back in Illustrator and you only want to work with 12 colors. You can simplify this down to 12 colors and then say done and save it. It'll save to that Creative Cloud library, and then when you open Illustrator, so I could name it here. My keyboard's not working on my iPad, so that's why this is kind of a pain. So this will show up in my Creative Cloud library. When I switch back to Illustrator, I could place that in an Illustrator file. I could recolor it using recolor art or whatever I want. So all of that is pretty awesome. Let's get back out of this. I thought I saved it. I guess we got to go back out of here. Okay. So colors, they added gradients recently. So you probably, if you've been using Capture, you know that you can do color themes from photos, but you can also create gradients. But the gradients right now only work in Photoshop. They're not vector gradients that are editable in Illustrator. I hope they do that eventually. One of the cool things that I learned at Adobe Max from the Capture team is, you know, in Photoshop 2020, it has a bunch of gradient presets. There's tons and tons of them in there. The Photoshop team used Capture to create all of those. Isn't that cool? So they're using a mobile app to create content for their desktop app. So if we find a photo here, whoops, I didn't want to go to the camera. Let's go to the plus. Let's just go to my camera roll here and pick some roses here. So it's in the gradient mode right now. I can move these around and notice wherever I put this color pin, it's changing my gradient on the left. So this is how you would create a gradient preset to use in Photoshop. And again, it would be saved to a Creative Cloud library for use there. If you want to create a color theme, which can be used in Photoshop or Illustrator, tap up here where the gradient is and change it to this first icon. And so now, it's not working for me. Why are you not working? There we go. I don't know how to go back into it. So how cool is that? Is that a beautiful color theme? So if you have a photo that you want to pull colors from it to use in a design, now you can do this in Premiere, right? Eric, you have CC libraries in Premiere, and it'll show your color themes, right?
Yeah, we do. So I've used that quite a bit. I always get stuck. It's like someday I need to call you like offline and ask you about libraries, because sometimes I get some issues with them where like I can see stuff but I can't access it. But yes, you can access all your libraries there. One other quick question: do you need an iPad Pro to work with any of this stuff, or can just a regular iPad handle it?
Everything that I'm showing you in Capture, you can use a regular iPad or a phone. I don't think there's any real requirements at all. Photoshop and Fresco, there would be different requirements, but not for this stuff here.
Got it.
So I'll go ahead and switch to another one here because we're getting low on time. I'm going to go to patterns. Oh no, I should go to looks because this is your guys's world. So if you want to color grade, how well do these work? Have you tried them, Eric, in your video?
Yeah, they do work. I've used them a couple times.
So if you have, say, a photo that has a color, like a color palette or a mood to it that you want to color grade your video, you would create a look or looks here on Capture from that photo, and then you can apply it as a look to your, you could apply it as a look in Photoshop as well, but you can also use it in Premiere Pro. And then patterns. Patterns are super fun. This pattern maker does work. What I'm going to show you here, a lot of people don't know though, and that is if you tap where these little squares are, the second icon down, there's the option to create vector patterns. So you have a number of Illustrator users in your group. If you switch this to vector, it's going to image trace that image. You can control the number of colors with the slider on the right, and you can save this out as an editable vector pattern that you can open with Pattern Maker and Illustrator and change the colors, recolor it, edit it however you want. So if you choose the vector, you would use it in Illustrator. If you choose the bitmap, you would use it in Photoshop. And they're seamless repeating patterns. This would show up in your pattern presets you use, but it's saved through a Creative Cloud library. You can change the pattern style here with the third icon down. So you can, change the look of what you're, what you want. Let's try that one. After you say check, you can actually change it more by rotating the image around. How beautiful is that? I'm gonna hypnotize you guys with this.
It's like a kaleidoscope.
Exactly. These are just fun to make. So notice it says bitmap PNG. If it says bitmap PNG, then it's a pattern for Photoshop. In the lower right, it says vector SVG, and that would be a pattern that could be used in Illustrator. And the last one is brushes, and I've been creating a ton of brushes for, gosh, it's already 7 o'clock. Let me just, well, let's go ahead and just, oh, I keep tapping the wrong thing. Just pick a photo. Oh, now it's going slow because I want it to go fast. Okay. So when you create a brush, we'll just say it's a brush and we'll go to the next one. You have the option on the lower right, it says pixel or it says vector. So if you do any digital painting, you can create a custom brush here that you can use in the Photoshop app on your desktop or Fresco on your iPad. And if you scroll down, then there's colored brushes that you can use in the Adobe Sketch mobile app. That's the only place where you can use colored brushes, and you can see their different styles. If you tap on the vector icon at the bottom, you can create an art brush for Illustrator, and they're fully editable here the same way you could in Illustrator to edit it. I've been creating a lot of these types of brushes, these like scatter brushes for Fresco. And what I do is I create like doily things or mandalas or flowers, and then I create a scatter brush here, and in Fresco I paint these funky backgrounds. So I'll switch over to that. I'll leave capture and switch over to that and show you how I use them, unless there's any questions here before I leave. Any questions on capture?
I don't see any at the moment.
So I gave you a pretty quick, maybe it wasn't that quick, but it feels quick because there's so much here. So I wanted to just give you an idea of everything that's here.
So we did have one question. I don't see the options on my phone.
The options probably at the bottom. Use your finger to swipe down or swipe up for the different styles. It's probably what they're looking for. It's all there though. They're just hidden in smaller icons and tucked in different places, but it's all there. Here, I'll open mine and look. Capture.
By the way, for the logo for my company, the little camera logo that I have was an actual Super 8 camera that's probably 60 years old in my office, and I used Capture to make a vector graphic of it, and that became my logo.
And now, that's awesome. That's a perfect use for it. Okay. not now. Okay, so we'll take a picture of my scarf here. All right, so at the bottom we have Pixel. And Pixel, we have Photoshop and Fresco. And if we scroll to the bottom, we have Sketch. If we switch it to Vector, we would be creating an Illustrator brush. So it's all the same. If we go, let's go back to Pixel. If we come down here to the settings, or we pick this one and then switch to settings, we have control to we can set this up however we want. Whatever settings we save this brush with, they can still be overridden and edited in Fresco or Photoshop. So if you've done any digital painting in Photoshop, you know the brushes panel or the brush settings panel allows you to edit all the settings for your brush. These settings that you create here and capture will show up in that panel, and then you can make further edits to them. Okay, did that answer the question?
I will wait to see if she writes back. There is another question from Bob that says, if I am working with an image in Photoshop that has some text, do I need to use Capture to find the font that was used?
There is in Photoshop, there's a match font tool. I don't know that it works as well as Capture does, though. If it was me, I would just point my camera right at my monitor and take a picture of it. Because it's there. It's easy. Okay, I'm going to switch back to my iPad because it's just easier to work with.
All right.
And I want to show off Fresco because this is where I have so much fun. I don't want to update my computer. Okay, so I'm going to open, well, I probably should open Photoshop first because you guys can see it. How many of your users your members are using Photoshop on the iPad?
I don't know about the iPad, but I know we all use Photoshop at some point.
So this is from last Christmas when I did a demo for Andrew's Facebook group. This is Photoshop on an iPad, and it looks different than Photoshop. So it takes a little bit of getting used to, but there's things about it that I like way better than Photoshop on a desktop. And I don't really want to be looking at Christmas. What else do I have here that I can look at? Here's a
Against Christmas.
it's just not, it's summertime. So in this view here, we're looking at the layers panel. It looks like the layers panel on Photoshop on your desktop, right? But it's taking up a lot of screen real estate. So they designed a new collapsed layers panel, which is so much nicer. So groups are grouped here. If I want to get into this group, I just double tap on it, and now I'm in that group, and you can see inside of there is another group, and you can see there's a gradient that's clipped to the text. So if I double tap on this one, actually I don't double tap on it. This has a mask on it. So if I turn the visibility on and off, you can see this is the giraffe, but on the preview on the layers panel, it shows all the pixels of that, and it's confusing because we're used to the regular Photoshop. But I like this a lot nicer because all you do is swipe this over, and now we can find the mask. So, you know, I teach a lot of Photoshop, and one of the challenges for brand new users is how do they know whether they're painting on the mask or painting on the pixel layer, right? Sometimes it's hard to see which one is selected. But I think this makes it really, really clear. If you were to do any painting at this point, you'd be painting on the pixels. So I just painted on the face there. Let's undo it because I don't want to leave that on there. But if I swipe this over, and let's switch these colors by just dragging and dropping so I can switch foreground to background, then I can paint in that layer mask. If you go and do a long tap on these, you can find a bunch of the brushes, those Kyle Webster brushes that are in the Photoshop app. They've put a bunch of them in here. So everywhere where you see the triangle, it's just like the Photoshop desktop. There's more tools under there. The other thing that's really cool, let's go to this background here. Let's go to this down here and go to the brush. And I'll tap again, let's see. Sometimes it's hard to pull up a long tap. So I had to hold my finger on it for a moment to bring up the brushes. So if I use one of these fancy brushes, say this Sumi Tilt, and I paint down here, see how it has kind of a texture? If I hold my left thumb on this circle, this big circle in the lower left-hand side, notice in the upper right it says erase. And now when I erase, it's erasing. I should have done that on its own layer, but it's erasing with the same exact brush settings and brush texture as the brush that I painted with, which is really convenient. So that's just a couple of the improvements that they did with Photoshop on the iPad. Is anybody using it? Eric, is anybody in your group, have they tried it? You do have to have an iPad Pro. Yeah. You have to have iPad Pro to use this, and it's still a work in progress. You know, it's a pretty new app. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles. If you come down here for filters and adjustments, that's all you got, Gaussian blur and invert. If you go to new layer, if you do a long tap on the new layer, you can add an adjustment layer. And right now it doesn't have curves, which was kind of a big fail. But it has all of this, so it's going to get there. Okay, I'm going to finish with Fresco because I love Fresco. Fresco is a drawing and painting app that has both vector and pixels. So do you recognize who this is, Eric? So Trisha Lawrence just retired from Adobe. She was running the ACP program. So I did this illustration of her for a going away present. This is really sad that she's leaving us. So, but how I do these is I just place a photo and I trace the photo with, you can see the top layer here. I just trace the photo with vector pencil. So this third one is the vector. Let's add another layer on there and then tap on the color and make it black and do a long tap to make sure I'm on basic ground. And then I would just, draw around whatever the photo is that I'm following. And then I fill in all the solid colors. And then I created a brush for hair using Adobe Capture. I created a custom brush, and then I use that in Fresco to paint hair. And then these patterns in the background. Let's see, let's turn all of this off. So you can see this. Looks kind of funky. So that's the photo that I traced. And these are all the layers of different shapes and colors that I made. We'll leave that on. We'll turn this one off. What did I miss? So all of these patterns back here, that was a brush that I drew out those shapes and then I turned it into a scatter brush. And then I saved it to a library. And if we come up here to my pixel brushes and I do a long tap and back out of Fresco brushes, we'll see these are all the brushes that come with Fresco. So there's some cool ones in here. You have like halftone dots and stuff. Those are ones that Kyle Webster made. But at the bottom is where your Creative Cloud libraries are. So these are all brushes that I custom made using Adobe Capture. And I could use these brushes. Oh, I just lost my connectivity. I don't know why. Maybe it's telling me I should be done. That was weird.
Question is, will some of these some of these apps run on a Surface Pro, Windows Surface Pro?
No, that's a great question. I just turned my QuickTime back on, so you're seeing me. Yeah, I lost my so maybe I'll just switch to if I stop my screen sharing, will you see me and I can just answer questions? I think my iPad just told me it was done. It was weird. I lost it.
Yeah. Yeah, stop sharing your screen and
okay. So I'll put you on the screen so I'm looking at you. So the Surface Pro is a computer. It looks like a tablet and it feels like a tablet, but it runs the full Windows operating system. The Chromebook is a mobile device like an iPad. A Wacom Studio Pro is a tablet that runs the operating system, the Windows operating system. So if it runs a Mac or a Mac iOS or a Windows iOS, you're going to run desktop apps on it. If it is considered a mobile device that gets apps from the App Store, whether it's the Google Play Store or the iOS App Store, then you'll find these apps there.
Yeah, I actually used Premiere on the is it the Surface Pro? Is like the big one that they had that Microsoft built that had the little dial wheel and some other stuff. But I remember like moving clips down from the bin to my timeline just by dragging it with my finger. And yeah,
I think that's the future. I really do.
Yeah, it's definitely.
I mean, maybe even at some point it's just virtual in front of us, and we're just
like Minority Report where we're just like moving stuff around.
Yeah, who knows?
I'd be fine with that.
I could see. I mean, when I look at how much technology has changed since I got in the industry when we didn't have computers. I mean, literally, I graduated college in 1984. That's when the first Apple computer came out. I mean, where have we come since then? It's mind blowing when you think about it. And I don't feel that old, Maybe I am, but you know what I'm saying? It's pretty crazy.
Oh yeah. So, do we have any more questions? So I'll let people type away if there's any down here.
Yeah, I really just gave you guys a high level overview. I mean, any one of these apps, I could do a whole hour. I could probably do a whole hour on Adobe Capture. But my recommendation is just play. I didn't even get into Spark. I mean, you've got Spark Page, Spark Video, and Spark Post, and they developed those apps for elementary school kids, but professionals are using them for social media. A lot of professional designers are using Spark Post to create their social media posts because it does everything they need, and it's already on a mobile device, and it's super fast, and they don't need Photoshop anymore.
So we have two questions here. So Arlene asked, do you have a handout? And unfortunately, no, I don't know that I have a handout to give out, but if there's information that you'd like, Arlene, just let me know. John Street asked, how do you personally use Lightroom when shooting with a DSLR or mirrorless camera?
I can answer that. I use Lightroom Classic on my desktop, and so all of my DLSR photos get imported into Lightroom Classic, and then I put the photos that I want to be in the ecosystem or online in a collection, and I sync that collection. And if you want to learn more about how to do all of that, I have a course on learning the Lightroom ecosystem on LinkedIn Learning.
And then, do you think these new UI elements will soon find their way into the desktop apps?
Yeah, I don't know that I can say soon, but yeah, I that's my guess that a lot of the UI updates that they're doing on mobile will eventually find their way there. Yeah,
I really like that the Photoshop with all the layers.
Collapse layers.
Yeah, how awesome is that?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that they've rethought it out. It's a much cleaner workflow. And Photoshop's, it's kind of bloated. Like, it's not kind of bloated, it's super bloated. Do we really need to be able to do all those things in one app? I don't know.
Well, I think that and that's a big conversation, but I know that there's a lot of us feel that way about a lot of the apps. Is it time to, I know with Premiere, for example, we used to have Adobe bought SpeedGrade, which is a color grading app,
right?
And we could just do all of our color grading in that. But then there's a lot of people like, well, I don't want to have to go to a separate app to do this, so put it on Premiere. But once you put everything under one roof, it tends to sort of be like, okay, there tends to be some more bugs, or there's tends to be, it's not as powerful as it once was when it was a standalone app.
Yeah, but, I see them moving in the direction of having things kind of parted out so that an app focuses on one thing. But who knows?
One other question: will Lightroom add editing features for video? Do you see that happen?
I don't know of that happening. You can do basic editing to video, if you create a preset, you can apply that develop preset to a video using the in the library panel where you have the auto edit. That's the only way that I know. That would be nice, but maybe they won't because, like you said, it's Lightroom's really not the app for video.
And you have Rush, so
yeah.
Which to tell the group too, we do plan at some point this year. We've been trying to plan it for a while now. We're going to do a whole meeting dedicated to Rush. We actually had people from Adobe that were talking about coming down, and then the whole
I'd
lockdown.
like to attend that.
Yeah, the whole lockdown thing happened, and that kind of canceled that. So we are going to work on that for the back half of the year, and our plan is to try to make it, if we can, to do it like a half-day seminar where somebody can come down. We can all have our phones. We can all shoot stuff.
Fun.
And then come back, edit everything together, and do something a little bit more interactive. So so you have another question for you. Does Theresa use Sidecar on Mac OS, Catalina to use Photoshop on an iPad?
Nope.
I'm not a Mac guy, so I don't know what any of that means.
No, don't need to.
Oh, there you go.
But I also haven't upgraded. I've been stalling. I'm still on Mojave. So I haven't really felt, I haven't felt the need to do that. I guess I'm being a little old school. Ugh, hate to admit that.
No, as a Windows guy, I hear all the time that, on the Mac side of the fence, that it's always like dicey when they introduce a new OS that, some people.
This latest one's been really tough.
Yeah. It's not quite that way, quite that bad on Windows, but I'm sure there are people that would argue that with me. So, all right. Any last questions? Let's, there's nothing else here. We will.
I'd be happy to come back again towards the end of the year, or early next year or something. So if there's any, because this was not a deep dive into anything, there was a lot of Lightroom questions, which kind of surprised me. If your group would be interested in me doing an hour and a half on Lightroom, I'd be happy to come back and do that.
Yes. So I've been told to bring you back. So.
Oh, okay. Well, you guys figure out what you want to hear.
We will plan for that then. I guess, that would be a good question. I'll kind of pose that to the group as like, what if they want to do a deep dive on one of those apps? What would that be? I know for me personally, I would like to learn more about Spark, because that's one thing that I hear a lot about. I don't know a lot about it or how it all works, but I know it's supposed to be a pretty powerful tool.
Yeah, it is. And so let me just say that Spark, I said this already, but Spark was designed for elementary school students. So I'd be happy to present Spark, but I always kind of feel like, like, okay, this is all pretty obvious.
don't assume that for some of us. I know myself. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm being told Lightroom would definitely be good. So okay, so I will. Let's see. There's one more thing here. Fits this group perfectly. Good. Okay. Yeah. Mark's saying speaking to elementary school people would be fitting this group perfectly.
Okay. All right.
All right. Well, with that, then I will let Theresa go, and I will thank you all for coming. I hope you all got a lot out of this. Theresa, you are awesome. I love you, and
I miss you, Eric.
I know. I was looking forward to seeing you at Adobe Max this year, because we usually always get together and chat. But
one time a year that we know we'll see each other.
One time we're on paths cross. But I know we need to do lunch again. Like, get all of us local folks for lunch. We haven't done that in a long time. So
when we can, let's do that.
Okay, absolutely. So, all right, thank you, everybody. And
everybody, I really loved being here. Thanks for having me.
And what's your website one more time for people who want to reach out to you?
Let me pull that up. Why don't we finish with that?
Yeah, definitely leave that up.
So. Okay.
There it is.
orchardviewcolor.com.
All right. So if you have questions, you want to reach out to Theresa, there is the way to get a hold of her.
And that's my email to Theresa@orchardviewcolor.com.
Perfect. And I would definitely follow her on Instagram, because she does post some cool pictures every once in a while.
All mobile. It's all I put on there. It's all from my phone.
All right. Thank you, everybody. We will see you next month.
Thanks, Eric.
All right. Bye, Theresa.